Let's try to solve two questions from NCERT class 10th chapter real numbers. So the first question says that check whether 6 to the power n can end with the digit 0 for any natural number n. So basically what we have is 6 to the power n, and n can be any natural number. If n is 1, the number that we are talking about would be 6. If n is 2, we would have 6 square, that is 36. If n is 3, the number that we are talking about is 6 times 6 times 6, that is 216, and so on. So irrespective of what n is, irrespective of which natural number n is, we are trying to answer that whether any of these number would end in 0. Is there any possibility that the units digit of any of these numbers would be 0? How can we think about that? So let's try to use this fundamental theorem of arithmetic. Now, if a number is ending in 0, what would be its characteristic in terms of its prime factors? Let me clarify this. For example, let's say that we have a number that ends in 0, for example 10 or 20 or 100 or 40 or 50. You take any number that ends in 0. It can be a three digit number, 4-digit number, any number. But the important thing here is, what is the common prime factor that all these numbers definitely have? 10, I can write it as 2 times 5. So 2 and 5, it has 2 prime factors. 20, I can write it as 4 times 5. So 5 is again a common prime factor. 100, I can write this as 20 times 5. So 5 is again a prime factor. There would be other possible prime factors as well, but 5 is definitely one of those prime factors. Similarly, 40, I can write it as 8 5s are 40. 50, I can write it as 10 5s are 50. So irrespective of what that number is, if it is ending in 0, it will definitely have 5 as one of its prime factors. So from this I can say that if a number ends with 0, it will definitely have 5 as one of its prime factors. Now let's talk about numbers which are in this form. What would be the prime factorization of such numbers? So let's try to simplify. 6, we can write this as 6 is nothing but 2 times 3. So basically this number would be in the form 2 times 3 times n. And this can be further written as 2 times n times 3 times n. So it has equal number of 2's and 3's, but as per fundamental theorem of arithmetic, this is the only unique way. There is only one unique way to prime factorize these numbers, and they would be in this form. These numbers will never have 5 as the prime factor, as we can see here, because this is what fundamental theorem of arithmetic says, that there is only one unique way to prime factorize any given number, and for these numbers that unique way is this: 2 to the power n times 3 to the power n. There is no possibility of having 5 here. That is why any number in this form will never have 5 as the prime factor, so it will never end with 0. So I hope you have the answer for the first question. Let's move on to the second one. Explain why 7 times 11 times 13 plus 13 and this number are composite numbers. So just for a quick refresh, composite numbers are those numbers which has more than 2 factors. So let's start with the first one. So as I can see here, there are two terms here. One is 7 times 11 times 13 and another term is 13. We can simplify this and get to the number, but that's not the idea, right? We have to find whether this number is composite or not without doing any calculation. One easy thing that we can do here, just to clarify things further, I can see 13 as the common factor in both these terms. So we can pick out 13, and therefore we would be left with some number, in this case 7 times 11 plus of 1. So this is the number that we are talking about. Let's say this number is x. So x is equal to 13 times 7 times 11 plus of 1. Now let's talk about this number x. Now we know that any number has two factors for sure, except 1, because 1 is the only number with just one factor. But other than 1, any number would have 1 as the factor and the number itself. So two factors it will definitely have. But other than this, in this case, we can also see that we can write this number x in form of 13 times something. So 13 will also be a factor of this number. Now the moment we have more than two factors for any number, it becomes composite. So that is why this number is a composite number, because it has more than two factors. And as you can see here, the third factor is 13. This would also be another factor, but this is enough to actually say that this number would be composite. Similarly, we can do the same thing for this number. It has again two terms, first term and the second term. 5 is the common value, so we can pull out 5. So this would be 5 times some value. Now 1 would be factor for sure. The number itself would be the second factor, and other than these two, we have 5 as one more factor. So it has more than two factors, so this number also became composite. So I hope the explanation for the second question is also clear.